They say Mount Hallowspire is cursed. Every small town at its base has a version of the legend. Some whisper of climbers who vanish without a trace. Others talk about strange lights at night, or the sounds of voices echoing through the canyons long after the wind has died. I laughed off those stories when I first heard them. I wasn't new to mountains. I had Summit Rainier, Denali, even the jagged peaks of the Andes. But there was something about Hallowspire, remote, unmarked on most maps, that pulled at me. The locals gave me looks when I asked about it at the only diner in town. An old woman cleaning tables froze, muttered a prayer under her breath. A younger man shook his head. "No one climbs that mountain," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Why not?" I pressed. His lips thinned. "Because it climbs you." I thought he was crazy. But now, sitting here writing this, if I even am writing this, if these words will ever be found, I realize he was right. I started at dawn. My gear was packed tight, my water and rations carefully measured. The climb began like any other. Thick forest swallowed the trailhead, and the air was damp with fog. My boots crunched against leaves and twigs, the occasional crow cawing above me. But within the first few miles, things felt off. The birds stopped singing. The air grew too still, heavy, like it was watching me. And the forest shifted. I swear the trees moved when I wasn't looking. Roots twisted across the path where none had been seconds before. Once, I turned my head to glance behind me and saw the trail completely different from how I remembered it. The branches formed shapes, almost like faces. At the time, I told myself it was exhaustion or maybe just nerves. Mountains play tricks on you if you're not careful. But deep down, I felt the rawness sinking in. By nightfall, I had reached the timberline. The trees thinned and jagged rock rose against the sky. I set up camp on a flat outcropping, the valley yawning below me. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was the wind, a low, hollow whistle threading through the crags. But then it changed, became words. Not in English, but a language that pressed against my skull like fingers. I froze, clutching my sleeping bag tighter. My lantern flickered. The whispering grew louder, overlapping, like dozens of voices murmuring from every direction. I wanted to unzip the tent, to shine my flashlight, but something inside me screamed not to. Instead, I lay there all night paralyzed as the mountain spoke. The next morning, the world was wrong again. My GPS glitched, the screen flashing symbols I didn't recognize. The trail, if there ever was one, was gone. In its place stretched a narrow path carved into the rock, steep and winding, leading upward. I don't know why I followed it. Logic told me to descend, to go back the way I came, but something in my chest burned with the need to climb higher. It wasn't my own thought. It was as if the mountain had planted it inside me. The higher I went, the more distorted the world became. Shadows moved in ways that didn't match the sun. Rocks formed patterns, spirals that drew my eyes and made me dizzy. Once, I passed a crack in stone that looked exactly like a mouth, jagged teeth and all, and I could have sworn I heard it breathe. By the third day, I wasn't alone anymore. I saw figures on the ridge above me. At first, I thought they were other climbers, their silhouettes sharp against the sky. Relieved, I waved and shouted, but they didn't respond. They didn't move at all. When I reached the ridge, they were gone. But later, when I stopped to rest, I looked up and saw them again, closer this time. A group of them, their shapes wrong, too tall, too thin, their limbs bending at strange angles. I blinked and they vanished. That night, as I huddled in my tent, I heard footsteps circling me, slow, deliberate, crunching against the gravel. I gripped my knife, my breath ragged. The steps stopped right outside. I held my breath. Then, Fingers press against the tent wall. Long, claw-like fingers that drag slowly across the fabric. And then they were gone. I should have gone down. But I didn't. Something pulled me higher, a compulsion I couldn't resist. My muscles burned, my lips cracked with thirst, but I kept climbing. The summit came at dawn on the 5th day. A jagged plateau of stone, sharp as broken glass. The wind howled like a chorus of screams. And in the center of it stood an altar. Black stone, slick with something wet. Symbols carved deep into it, glowing faintly. I staggered forward, trembling, my head filled with static. The voices were back, louder now, chanting in that same alien language. And then I saw them, the figures, dozens of them, surrounding me, their faces hidden in shadow. Too many limbs, too many eyes, their bodies bending and breaking in ways that made no sense. One of them stepped closer, its face stretched into a grin that split too wide. "You climbed," it whispered, but it wasn't a sound. It was inside my skull. "You belong to the mountain now." I don't remember what happened after that. When I woke, I was halfway down the slope, my gear shredded, my hands raw and bleeding. My GPS was dead, my compass spinning in circles. I tried to find the trail. I couldn't. Every direction led me back to the same clearing, the same twisted rocks. The mountain wouldn't let me go. At night, the figures gathered at the edge of my firelight, watching, waiting. Sometimes I hear my own voice among theirs, whispering things I don't understand. I don't know how long I've been here. Days? Weeks? Time doesn't move the same way anymore. But I do know this. The mountain doesn't want climbers. It wants offerings. And I think I'm already becoming one. If someone finds this journal, if these words ever make it down the mountain, don't climb Hallow Spire. Don't even look at it. Because once it sees you, once it calls you, you're already lost. It was supposed to be a simple weekend trip. 4 of us, me, my best friend Tyler, his girlfriend Emma, and my cousin Lucas, heading into the Rockies for 2 nights of camping. No phones, no responsibilities, just fresh air and the kind of silence you can't get in the city. The first day was perfect. We laughed, drank cheap beer, and took turns mocking Lucas for bringing way too much gear. He packed like we were crossing Antarctica instead of spending a weekend in the wilderness. But sometime late in the afternoon, the trail started to vanish under our boots. What should have been a well-marked path narrowed until it was barely a deer track, then faded completely. Tyler wanted to turn back, but Emma convinced us to push forward. That's when we saw it, a cabin, old, weather-beaten, but standing tall in a clearing between the trees. "Holy shit," Lucas muttered. "This isn't on the map." We approached cautiously. The cabin was made of dark logs, moss creeping up the sides. Its windows were dusty but intact, the glass reflecting the late sun like dull coins. The strangest part? The place wasn't abandoned. Inside, we found a dining table set with plates and cutlery. A pot sat on the wood stove, cold but still holding something black and solid. Beds upstairs were unmade, sheets yellow with age. Boots lined up by the door as if their owners had just stepped outside. "Creepy as hell," Emma whispered, her hand tightening on Tyler's arm. Lucas grinned nervously. "It's free real estate." Despite the unease gnawing at me, we stayed. Why wouldn't we? The cabin was sturdier than tents, with real beds and a roof over our heads. That night, as the fire crackled in the stove, I swore I heard footsteps upstairs. But when I checked, the rooms were empty. The next morning, I found a leather-bound journal on a desk in the corner. Its first entries were boring, weather notes, hunting logs, sketches of deer and birds. But halfway through, the handwriting grew frantic. "They don't want us here." Emma swears she saw someone standing in the tree line. but no tracks in snow. Lucas hasn't spoken in 2 days, just stares at the wall. The names froze my blood. Emma, Lucas. I slammed the book shut. Guys, you need to see this. But when I turned, the cabin was different. The table was no longer set. The plates were gone, replaced by dust and cobwebs. The boots by the door had vanished. Tyler frowned. What are you talking about? The place looks the same as last night. But it didn't. I knew it didn't. By afternoon, Lucas was gone. We searched the woods, shouting his name until our throats were raw. No tracks. No sign he had ever left the cabin. His gear was still there, his backpack, his jacket, even his ridiculous extra supplies. Emma was hysterical, blaming Tyler for pushing us further off trail. Tyler snapped back, swearing Lucas must have wandered off. I stayed silent. I couldn't stop thinking about the journal. That night, I woke to sound. Scratching, like nails dragging along wood. It came from the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. Then I heard footsteps again, heavy and deliberate, pacing upstairs. I shook Tyler awake. Do you hear that? He rubbed his eyes. Hear what? The footsteps stopped. The cabin was silent again. The next morning, Emma was gone. Her sleeping bag was unzipped, her boots missing, but her pack, her water, her coat was still inside. Tyler broke. He tore through the cabin, screaming her name, smashing his fist against the walls until his knuckles bled. I tried to stop him, but he shoved me away. This is your fault, he shouted. You found this place. I wanted to tell him about the journal, about the names, but I couldn't. My throat tightened every time I tried, like the cabin itself was choking me. That night, I sat awake by the fire, clutching my knife. Shadows moved at the edge of the room, just outside the lantern's glow. And then I saw her, Emma, standing in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide. Emma? I whispered. She opened her mouth, but the sound that came out wasn't human. A hollow, rasping echo that made my bones vibrate. When I blinked, she was gone. Tyler didn't last the next day. He vanished while I was outside chopping wood. One moment he was there, sitting on the steps, head in his hands. The next gone. No scream, no sound, just empty space. Now it was just me. I tried to leave, packed what I could, and marched into the trees. But no matter which direction I went, I ended up back at the cabin. Sometimes the trees changed while I walked, paths twisting, landmarks vanishing. Once, I turned a corner and nearly slammed into the cabin door again. It wouldn't let me go. I don't know how many days it's been. Time feels broken. The journal has changed again. More entries, scrawled in a hand that looks exactly like mine. Tyler is gone. I saw Emma, but it wasn't her. It's just me now. Every word matches what I've lived. Tonight, I finally flipped to the last page. My stomach dropped. The final entry reads, and then I vanished too. I'm writing this by lantern light, the shadows thickening around me. The footsteps upstairs haven't stopped for hours. The scratching is inside the walls now, close, so close I can almost feel the fingers brushing my skin. I don't know if anyone will ever read this. I don't know if I'm already gone. But the truth is clear now. This cabin isn't just in the mountains. The cabin is the mountain. And once you step inside, you never really leave. I've climbed plenty of mountains, but nothing could prepare me for the cold silence of the glacier. Our team of 5 had been chosen for the expedition. Me, Dr. Heller, the geologist, Mason, our guide, and 2 grad students, Anna and Joel. The goal was simple. Take core samples from an unmapped glacier high in the Canadian Rockies. The journals called it unnamed, but Mason swore the locals had a word for it. He refused to say it out loud. From the first moment, the place felt wrong. The ice stretched endlessly, a pale desert under sky that never seemed to brighten. Even during the day, the light felt dim, like the sun was filtered through layers of ash. But what struck me most was the silence. No wind, no creaking of ice, not even the sound of water. Just dead stillness, as if the glacier was holding its breath. On the second day, we found it, a fissure in the ice, wide enough to swallow a truck. Mason cursed under his breath the moment he saw it. That wasn't here last year, he said, eyes narrowed. Dr. Heller, of course, was ecstatic. A perfect chance to study deeper strata. We'll rappel down, collect samples, and be back by nightfall. We set anchors and ropes. I volunteered to go first. My boots dug into the slick walls as I lowered myself into the blue throat of the glacier. The light shifted as I descended, the ice around me glowing like stained glass, twisting into patterns that looked almost deliberate. At about 60 feet, I froze. There were faces in the ice. Not carved, not eroded, preserved. Men and women, eyes open, mouths locked in silent screams. Perfectly preserved as if they had fallen yesterday. Jesus, I whispered into the radio. You guys seeing this? Static answered me. By the time I reached the bottom, my hand was shaking. The chamber was massive, a hollow carved deep into glacier. The faces weren't just here and there. They lined the walls. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Some ancient, some disturbingly fresh. But what made my stomach turn wasn't the preservation. It was the detail. Skin unwrinkled, hair suspended in the ice, eyes wet and glassy, as if they were alive just minutes ago. Anna joined me, her breath fogging. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They look awake." She was right. Their eyes followed us. I swear to God they followed us. Joel rappelled down next, his face pale. "We shouldn't be here." Dr. Heller brushed past him, his excitement unbroken. He pressed his gloved hand against one of the frozen faces. "Do you understand what this means? This glacier could preserve tissue samples for thousands of years." The ice twitched. I know how insane that sounds, but I saw it. The eyelid fluttered. The lips quivered as if trying to form words. Anna screamed. We scrambled for the ropes. Mason was shouting from above, his voice faint, distorted. Joe went first, hauling himself upward as fast as he could. Then the ice cracked. It echoed like a gunshot, deep and resonant. A jagged fissure split across the chamber, right beneath Joel. The wall of ice groaned, and then it swallowed him. I'll never forget the sound. His scream cut short, muffled as the glacier sealed him inside. One moment he was there. The next he was part of the wall, his eyes wide, his hands pressed against the translucent surface as if he'd been there forever. Anna collapsed, sobbing. Dr. Heller stood frozen, whispering, "Impossible, impossible." But I couldn't move, because Joel's lips were moving. Pressed inside the ice, he mouthed words, his eyes locked on mine. "Help me." Mason yanked us back up, his face ashen. He wanted to pack up and leave immediately, but Dr. Heller refused. "We can't walk away from this discovery. Do you understand? This is history. This is science." But I wasn't thinking of science. I was thinking of Joel, his face, his eyes, his silent scream. That night in the tent, I dreamed of him. He was standing at the foot of my cot, his skin pale, frost spreading across his cheeks. When I jolted awake, I swore I heard scratching against the canvas, like fingernails on fabric. The next day, Dr. Heller convinced Anna to go back down with him. Mason and I stayed at the surface, tension thick between us. Hours passed. Then the rope jerked violently. Anna's scream echoed up from the depths. Then silence. Dr. Heller's voice crackled through the radio. "It's beautiful down here. So many voices. They're calling us. Mason cut the rope. By then, I was done. We're leaving, I told Mason. Now. We packed what little we could carry and started across the ice. But the glacier shifted. The crevasse was gone. The surface had smoothed over as if it had never existed. And beneath our feet, a low hum vibrated, like a massive engine buried in the ice. Then came the whispers, at first faint, then louder, surrounding us from every direction. Not English, not any language I knew, but my brain twisted it into words anyway. Stay with us. I covered my ears, but it didn't matter. The voices weren't coming through sound. They were inside my head. Mason dropped to his knees, clutching his skull. Get out, he screamed. Get out of me. Then his body went still. His eyes glazed over, and a smile spread across his face. He stood, walked calmly to the nearest patch of ice, and pressed his hands against it. Without hesitation, he leaned forward until his face touched the surface. The glacier opened for him, swallowing him whole. I was alone. I don't know how long I wandered. Hours? Days? The light never changed. Sometimes I saw them ahead of me, Joe, Anna, Mason, walking across the ice, always just out of reach. When I ran to them, they dissolved into mist. Other times, I saw their faces beneath my boots, staring up at me through the ice. Their mouths moved, whispering things I couldn't understand. I should have died out there. No food, no water, no warmth. But I didn't. The glacier kept me alive. I think it wanted me alive. At last, I collapsed. When I opened my eyes, I was back at the fissure. It had reopened, yawning wide, the walls glowing faintly. And deep inside, I heard voices, hundreds of them. Dr. Heller's voice was among them. Clear, strong, almost joyful. They're waiting for you. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe the glacier wants me to. Maybe this is how it spreads. Through stories, through warnings no one heeds. I can still see Joel's face in the ice, his eyes begging me. But I also hear the others, whispering promises of peace, of belonging. I'm so tired of fighting. The glacier is calling, and I think I'm going to answer. I've climbed peaks all my life, but this mountain was different. It wasn't even on the official maps, just a jagged silhouette the locals called a mountain of echoes. They said the cliffs spoke at night, voices bouncing between stone walls like ghosts. I laughed when Mason, our guide, warned us. Don't answer if the mountain calls your name, he said. There were 5 of us, me, Mason, my friend Claire, and 2 brothers, Eric and Daniel. We weren't amateurs. Each of us had summited serious peaks. But the mountain of echoes felt like it was watching us from the moment we stepped onto its slopes. The air was unnervingly still. No birds, no wind, not even the rustle of loose rock. Just silence. Until nightfall, our campfire sputtered in the thin air, shadows stretching along the cliff walls. That's when we heard it. Hello. A voice, clear as day, drifting from the darkness beyond the firelight. We froze. It was my voice. Hello. It repeated. Exactly the same tone, the same inflection. Eric tried to laugh it off. Echoes, right? That's why it's called that. But it wasn't an echo. I hadn't said anything. We sat in silence, waiting. Then Claire whispered, "Stop it. You're freaking me out." And the mountain whispered back, "Stop it. You're freaking me out." Perfectly, word for word, her face drained of color. That night, none of us slept. The next day, we pushed higher, trying to shake it off. But the echoes followed us. Whenever one of us spoke, the cliffs answered, not as a reflection of sound, but a repetition, minutes or even hours later. And sometimes, the words weren't ours at all. At dusk, Daniel was the first to wander. We were setting up camp when we heard him scream from the ridge above. "Help me!" We scrambled up, only to find him sitting calmly, staring into the valley. "Why did you yell?" Claire demanded. Daniel blinked. "I didn't, but I had heard him. All of us had. His exact voice. That night, the mountain called again. This time, it was my voice shouting from the darkness. 'Over here! Hurry!' Mason grabbed my arm before I could move. His grip was like iron. 'That's not you,' he hissed. 'Don't answer it.' But Eric did. He stumbled into the night, following the sound. We never saw him again. By the third day, the mountain had gotten inside our heads. The echoes weren't just sounds anymore. They were thoughts, whispers threading through our skulls, doubts we couldn't shake. Claire kept hearing her mother's voice, calling her name. Daniel swore he heard Eric begging to follow. As for me, I heard myself. Late that night, as I sat staring into the fire, I heard my own voice whisper from the cliffs. "You're already dead. You just don't know it yet." Mason finally snapped. "We're leaving. Now." But the mountain didn't let us. Every path down circled back to where we had started, the cliffs rearranging themselves like a labyrinth. Landmarks shifted, trails disappeared. At one point, we stumbled upon our own campsite from the night before. Tent still standing, fire still smoldering. But inside the tent were 3 sleeping bags. Not 4. Mine was missing. Claire broke next. She swore she saw Eric standing in the tree line, waving at her. She ran before we could stop her, her scream echoing through the cliffs. Moments later, her voice came back, soft, broken, begging us to follow. Daniel was sobbing by then, rocking back and forth. "It's just a mountain," he muttered. "Just a mountain." But when the mountain whispered it's just a mountain in his voice, something inside him shattered. He stood, walked calmly to the cliff's edge, and stepped off. His scream echoed for far too long. Only Mason and I remained. We didn't speak. The echoes used our words against us. But silence didn't save us. That night, I woke to Mason standing over me, his knife in hand, his face slack and pale. "They said I have to," he whispered. I barely managed to knock the blade away before he lunged. We struggled, the fire throwing wild shadows across the rocks. At last, he pulled free, stumbled back, and froze. Then he smiled. "They're calling me." Before I could stop him, he vanished into the dark. His voice echoed seconds later, laughing. "Now it's just me. The mountain hasn't stopped. It whispers in my voice constantly now, sometimes begging, sometimes mocking. I don't know how long I've been here. Days? Weeks?" I tried not to answer. I really did. But tonight, I heard something new. Not an echo, not a trick. It was my own voice close, whispering right behind my ear. Time to go. And I think maybe it's right. I had always believed mountains were silent, lifeless things, just heaps of rock and snow stacked into the sky. But when we set out to climb Black Spire, a jagged summit in the heart of the Cascades, I learned that mountains could breathe, whisper, and hunger. There were 4 of us, myself, Daniel, our lead climber, Maria, a geologist obsessed with strange rock formations, and Tom, the practical one, the kind of man who measured every risk 3 times before making a move. I was the least experienced, tagging along more for the adventure than for the thrill of the climb. Black Spire wasn't on most maps. Officially, it was just unnamed Peak 19, rising above a tangle of frozen valleys. But locals called it the Hollow Peak, and when we asked why, they just shrugged. Doesn't sound right up there. An old guide had told us, rocks ring like bells. Air shakes in your chest. Don't go poking where you don't belong. We laughed it off. But even before we set up our first camp, I understood what he meant. On our second night, I woke to the ground trembling beneath my sleeping bag. It wasn't an avalanche or shifting ice. It was rhythmic, a faint vibration, like a massive engine buried deep underground. I pressed my ear to the frozen ground, and my blood went cold. The mountain was humming. Maria noticed it too. The next morning, she crouched near an outcrop of black stone and tapped it with her ice axe. Instead of the dull thunk of granite, it rang out like struck metal, high, hollow, unnatural. "This rock isn't solid," she said with a grin that was half excitement, half dread. "It's like the mountain's a shell around something else." Tom muttered a curse and walked off. Daniel tried to keep us focused on the climb, but that hum followed us higher. Sometimes it was faint, barely a whisper in the soles of our boots. Other times, especially at night, it grew strong enough to rattle our gear. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed I was inside a massive throat, listening to the thunder of some buried heartbeat. On the fourth day, fog rolled down the slopes, swallowing us in a white blindness. That was when Maria spotted it. A fissure in the rock wall, wide enough for a person to slip through. "We have to see what's inside," she insisted. "If this peak really is hollow, that's the proof." Tom argued bitterly, but Daniel, curious as always, sided with Maria. Against my better judgment, I followed. The passage wound downward like a throat, narrowing until we had to crawl on hands and knees. My headlamp flickered against smooth walls. They weren't rough stone, but polished, curved, almost like glass that had melted and hardened again. And then, abruptly, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. I will never forget that first step into the dark cathedral inside the mountain. Our light stretched into blackness, revealing pillars of stone so massive they seemed to hold up the sky. The walls weren't jagged but rounded, curving like the inside of a rib cage. "Jesus Christ," Daniel whispered. Maria pressed her palm to the wall. "This is an erosion. This was made." But by whom or what, she didn't say. We camped inside the chamber that night, though none of us really wanted to. The air was warmer in there, damp and stale, and the walls seemed to swallow sound. Even our whispers bounced back to us distorted, like voices underwater. I was half asleep when I heard it. Not the hum this time. A voice. It was faint at first, but it grew clearer, threading through the black corridors. My name, being called over and over. I sat up, my heart pounding. Maria was asleep. Tom was lying rigid in his bag, eyes wide open. He heard it too. Daniel was gone. We grabbed our lights and followed the echoes through the tunnels. The sound of Daniel's voice, no, not quite his voice, but something wearing it, led us deeper, always just out of reach. The walls shimmered as if wet. The humming grew louder until I felt it in my bones. Finally, in the deepest chamber, we found him. He was standing in front of a pit, staring down into it. His lips moved, repeating words we couldn't understand, his voice blending with the low rumble of a mountain. When we shook him, he blinked and looked at us in confusion, as if waking from a dream. I thought I heard someone calling, he murmured, like 100 voices all at once. We pulled him back to camp. None of us slept again. The next morning we agreed to leave. Whatever curiosity had brought us here was gone, but the mountain had other plans. The passage we had crawled through to enter the hollow was gone. In its place was a wall of smooth, seamless stone. "We're not trapped," Daniel said quickly, though his voice shook. "There has to be another way out. Air's flowing. There's an opening somewhere." So we descended. The tunnels twisted endlessly, splitting and rejoining like veins. The deeper we went, the stronger the hum grew, until it felt like the walls themselves were vibrating. My teeth ached from it. Sometimes the stone seemed to breathe, swelling and contracting like lungs. Maria was ecstatic, muttering to herself, sketching formations in her notebook. Tom grew angrier with every step, shouting at Daniel for leading us here. I just kept quiet, because I knew the truth neither of them wanted to admit. The mountain didn't want us to leave. We stumbled upon it after what felt like days, an immense cavern, larger than any cathedral, so wide our headlamps barely touched the opposite wall. At its center was a pit, a circular maw that dropped into endless darkness. And from that pit came the hum, louder than ever now, a living thunder that made my chest vibrate. I staggered back, clutching my ears, but Maria walked straight to the edge. "It's alive," she whispered. "The whole mountain. It's a shell, a body, and this," she pointed into the pit, "this is the heart." Something moved in the darkness. I swear it. Something massive, shifting far below, like the roll of a whale beneath black water. A tendril of sound rose from it, no longer just vibration, but a voice, 1,000 voices. "Stay." The word was not heard, but felt. My knees buckled. Daniel dropped his light. Tom screamed, dragging Maria back from the edge. But Maria fought him, her eyes wild. "Don't you see? It's calling us. It needs us." I wanted to run, to flee into the tunnels, but the walls seemed to close in. My body shook with the resonance of that voice. My thoughts weren't my own. For a moment, I wanted to throw myself into that pit, to be swallowed, to become part of whatever lived inside the mountain. It was Tom who saved us, at least for a time. He slapped Maria across the face, breaking her trance, and pulled us all to a side passage. We stumbled blindly through the tunnels, the hum chasing us, voices whispering from every wall. I don't know how long we ran. The tunnels twisted endlessly, sometimes splitting, sometimes merging, always vibrating with that sickening pulse. Then the floor gave way. I fell hard, my light shattering against the rocks. When I came to, my body ached and the humming was gone. Daniel lay nearby, groaning. Tom's leg was twisted at a sick angle. Maria was gone. We called for her until our voices were raw, but only echoes answered. At last, Daniel whispered what we all knew. She went back. To the heart. We never found another way out. Days blurred. Our food ran out. Tom's leg grew black with infection. At night, the humming returned, softer now, almost soothing. And with it, the voices. Maria's voice calling us. Then others. Friends. Family. People long dead. Tom finally couldn't take it. He dragged himself into the dark, following the whispers. We didn't stop him. That left me and Daniel. He tried to stay strong, but I saw the madness grow in his eyes. On our last night, he sat across from me in the dim light of our dying headlamp and whispered, "Maybe it's not trying to kill us. Maybe it's trying to keep us. Forever." When I woke, he was gone. I am alone now. The mountain hums beneath me, steady as a heartbeat. I no longer fight it. The sound is inside me, filling me, soothing me. I understand now. The hollow peak isn't a mountain at all. It's alive. It always was. And it doesn't want climbers or explorers or geologists. It wants worshipers. And soon, when I can no longer resist, I will give myself to it. Just one more voice, echoing in the endless dark. They say the mountains kill in silence. Frostbite, avalanches, thin air, it's never loud. But no one warned me about the things that watch. We had been climbing in the Rockies for nearly a week when the avalanche struck. 1 second we were trudging along a narrow ridge. The next, the snow gave way under us. The world turned white, roaring and endless. When I came to, I was half buried at the bottom of a slope, coughing ice from my lungs. My pack was gone. My radio was gone, and so were the others. I screamed for Daniel, for Maria, for Tom. Nothing but wind answered. That was the moment I realized I was alone. I built a crude shelter out of snow and pine boughs. My fingers were already numb, my face raw from the cold. I told myself I'd find the others at dawn. I told myself rescue teams would come. But that night, as I lay shivering, I saw something move. At first, I thought it was just shadows thrown by the moonlight on the snow. But then I noticed a shape, tall, gaunt, too thin to be human. It stood at the far edge of the slope, perfectly still, its pale form almost glowing in the moonlight. I blinked and it was gone. I didn't sleep after that. I searched all morning, following what little trail the avalanche had left. I found scraps of gear half buried in the snow, but no people, no footprints, no bodies. By afternoon, exhaustion hit me. I collapsed by a cluster of rocks, sucking at a chunk of ice to ease my thirst. That was when I saw it again. The figure, standing at the tree line this time. Not moving, not approaching, just watching. I shouted. I waved my arms. No response. When I blinked, it was gone again. By the time the sun dipped behind the peaks, the fear in my chest had curdled into something worse. The certainty that whatever it was, it wasn't just in my head. Late that day, I stumbled across a small wooden cabin buried in the snow. It looked abandoned, roof sagging, door half off its hinges, but it was shelter. Inside, it was dark and cold. The furniture was old, covered in frost, but intact. On the walls, I found carvings, dozens of crude figures scratched into the wood with knives or nails. Tall, thin, stretched things, some with wide, staring eyes, and one of them looked exactly like me. I froze, tracing the lines of my finger, my crooked nose, the scar on my cheek, my face. I told myself it was coincidence, someone else. But the longer I stared, the less I believed it. That night, the thing came closer. I saw it through the frost-crusted window, standing in the snow, no more than 50 feet away, watching. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. I didn't look again until dawn. When I did, the snow outside was untouched. No footprints. On the third night, I heard Daniel's voice. Faint at first, then louder, calling my name. Over here! Help me! I bolted up, nearly tearing the door off its hinges. The night was silent, the trees heavy with snow. Then I saw it, not Daniel, the tall figure, standing exactly where the voice had come from. It tilted its head, as if curious. The moonlight revealed a face, if you could call it that, pale, stretched, eyes like pits carved into ice. I slammed the door shut and wedged it with a chair, but the voice kept calling, over and over. By dawn, I was shaking so badly I could barely hold my knife. My food was gone by the fourth day. My water was running out. I tried to leave the cabin, to search for a way down the mountain, but the moment I stepped outside, I saw it, closer this time. It was crouched near the rocks, long limbs folded like a spider, watching. When I moved, it shifted. When I stopped, it froze. I ran back inside, slamming the door. That night, I dreamed I was outside, walking across the snow. The figure followed behind me, its steps leaving no mark. When I turned, its face was mine. On the fifth night, there were more of them. I woke to the sound of crunching snow. I crept to the window and nearly screamed. 3 figures now, standing in a row at the tree line. All tall, all pale, all still. I pressed my back to the wall, knife clutched in my frozen hand. Hours passed. I blinked, drifted, blinked again. Each time they were closer. By dawn, they stood just outside the cabin. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke to the sound of the door creaking open. Slowly, I sat frozen in my sleeping bag, unable to move. The cold air poured in. Then I heard it, my own voice, whispering from the doorway, "Come with us." I don't know how I found the strength to move. I grabbed a lantern and hurled it at the door. Flames licked the wood and the shadows recoiled. By the time the fire died, the doorway was empty, but the carvings on the wall had changed. There were more of them now. The figures multiplied, crowding every inch of wood, and in the center was a new carving, me, standing in the doorway, mouth open in a scream. I don't know how long I've been here. My body is weak, starving. My fingers are black with frostbite. The watchers surround the cabin every night, more of them each time. They don't move, not while I'm watching, but I feel them pressing closer. I don't know what they are. Spirits, echoes, the mountain's children. But I know what they want. Not to kill me, to take me. The carvings prove it. Each morning, I find myself etched deeper into the wood. Soon, there will be no difference between me and them. The cabin is shaking now. The walls are groaning. I hear my own voice whispering from every direction. I don't think I'll see another dawn. But if anyone finds this, if anyone reads these words, don't follow the watchers. Don't answer when they call. And whatever you do, don't look too long into the snow, because something out there is looking back. Some mountains hide secrets that should never be uncovered, and some stories are better left untold. But now you've heard them. If this tale sent chills down your spine, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell, because there are darker, more terrifying stories still to come. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never look too long into the shadows.